All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Taber Town Council meeting for November 12th, 2024. Call the meeting to order. And just to clarify, we have Councilor Bruin online with us virtually. Councilor Bruin, are you able to hear us all right?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. And just as per administration's ask, the agenda is adopted as amended to allow the opportunity to undertake action 7.1, municipal election 2025 Alberta Municipal Affairs election decisions prior to the bylaw items at item 6.1. So we just reverse those. Just ask for that adopted agenda as presented, please. All right, Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 3.1, public hearing related to the 56th Street and 62nd Avenue removal of reserve designation meeting to order. We'll call that meeting to order and ask that all members of the public in attendance who wish to speak against or for the 56th Street and 62nd Avenue removal of reserve designation will have a 5-minute time limit for speaking and must state their full name for the record and must state if they are speaking for themselves or on behalf of a group or organization. All right, Mr. Dibble.
Mr. Mayor, we've got Amy Allred, who did get some public feedback and will come to the mic and relay that public feedback to council.
All right, thank you, Ms. Allred.
Hello, Council.
Good afternoon.
Should I read the public feedback first? Okay, perfect. So in regards to this hearing for the proposed removal of designation reserve, we advertised in the paper for 2 weeks and signs have been posted on the land as per the MGA requirements. We have received 6 letters or emails of correspondence, which I will read for the public record. The first is from Kim Hammerstedt, which was an email. She said, for the past few years, the stormwater runoff area has been a natural habitat for many birds, muskrats, heron, and geese. If they decide to sell this section of land, there is a possibility of development in this area that could affect the natural habitat, and depending on what kind of residency that would be built, there may be a chance of higher criminal activity. My husband and I believe this area would be better suited for maybe a park or walking area so the wildlife can be enjoyed and benefit the local area citizens and industrial workers with health benefits. Concerned citizen, Kim. The second one is from Linda West at 6014 57th Street. I am writing to express my opposition to the sale of the development of Plan 82-107-12, Block 27, Lot 28 MR. I believe that this sale and further development of this property is not in the best interest of the area. It is a green space that has been used by families in the area for years. When green space is taken away, it is gone forever. I believe future development of this area would cause a significant increase in traffic up and down the back alley, which would cause excess noise and safety due to the residents. This area is directly across from a large retention pond, which could cause a risk to children who may wish to go exploring in a field right in front of their homes. I have lived in this neighborhood for close to 40 years and hope you will take my opposition into consideration. Sincerely, Linda West. The third one is from David Sachak of 6018 57th Street. I am against the sale and or development of this property. I would prefer it be left as a green space. Thank you. The next one is from John Phillip and Tiffany Allen of 6115 56th Street in Taber. It says, we are formally writing to express our objection to the proposed disposition of town reserve land and development at this property. In the community of Taber, Alberta, we are a neighbor living adjacent to the development site and have significant concerns about the development itself and the impact on the well-being and amenity of the surrounding area, our own home, and those of other residents. We have outlined these concerns in this objection letter. We feel developing this land will take away from the greenery and habitat for wildlife. Many neighbors in the community, as well as ourselves, utilize this green space for sports and recreation, supervised play for children and animals, etc. In reading the September 9th Town Council meeting minutes, the above noted property appears to be unsold. Our concern that there was no indication of the land sale mentioned to the community after sale and survey of the land has happened. Can you explain? We are concerned about the residents' privacy will be affected and worry of possible higher probability of criminal activity. Buildings that Buildings that close to the runoff on property proposed as expansion area brings concerns for people, particularly children. Several times, residents of community as well as emergency services have been called to removed or warned kids from playing in the runoff area due to safety concerns. Speaking of safety, it would increase foot traffic and vehicle traffic along 56th Street as well as alleys. Residents have asked for law enforcement to watch already due to the speeding that tends to get overlooked. Residents are wondering if this will affect their property value and taxes. We are wondering why this green area, why not utilize already zoned areas for expansion in newer areas. We urge you to disapprove the proposed rezoning. From the recent discussions with our neighbors, we know our opinions are shared by many who may and may not be able to attend the meetings or write their letters and emails. Thank you for your continued service and support of our community. The next one is from John and Helen Peters at 6109 57th Avenue. We wish to express our concern to this proposed land sale. Over the 30 years we have lived here, we have seen this land used as grazing land for families of geese and other wildlife. Parents and children exploring the wetlands, often weekends have children playing along the wetlands. Families walking with children and pets, wildlife photography, cross-country skiing, and walking. This seems to be one of the few quiet natural areas left in Taber that many citizens of this town have enjoyed over the years. Development in the area would distract or even eliminate from the beauty and the present form usage. We believe this area can be better used as a wetland natural park so that citizens can continue to enjoy it for many years to come. Concerned citizens, John and Helen Peters. And the last one is from Harley and Shauna Phillips at 6110 57th Street. We purchased our residence 25 years ago. The piece of land in question was always considered town reserve land. We were advised all those years ago by the town of Taber that the land was in reserve. It was never to be developed. Not only was it to be held as a green space, it was also to be available should there be a requirement to expand the current storm pond. Based on that information, we not only purchased our residence, but we built an extension onto our house. We also built a bigger garage. We made financial decisions based on the fact that this reserve land was never to be sold or used for anything other than what we previously mentioned. This appears to be no longer the case. In reading the council meeting minutes of September 9th, we see that a motion was passed with unanimous consent that the land sale be accepted for the above-mentioned reserve property. There are many reasons we are against the disposition and development of this property. We would first like to discuss a stormwater pond that is directly adjacent to the green space we are referring to. A quick measurement shows the pond is approximately 200 yards wide by 260 long. That is the equivalent of 4 football fields. The depth of this pond is approximately 10 meters and even deeper in some. Using a standard volume calculation, that would mean the pond will hold approximately 163 million liters of water. The pond itself has water in it year-round. On several occasions, the pond has either been full or overflowed the banks. The town has started to bring in several irrigation pumps to help pump the water off the storm pond to avoid overflowing. One of the main feeder lines is a ditch that for several blocks has caution signs that warn about the unsafe conditions of the ditch because of the high water volumes and rapid water flow. At the termination of the ditch into the pond, there are 2 4-foot drain culverts that take the water underground and through a discharge. Both ends, the entry and exits, have bars, but the gap would have a small child pass through, or at the very least be pinned underwater, which results in, at the very least, an emergency and likely death. Why is that important? What we just described is on the edge of the above-noted reserve property. In Alberta Municipality Act, it discusses the responsibility of council to mitigate the liability and litigation risk. Selling property within meters of this pond and allowing residents to be constructed in direct proximity to both the storm pond and this ditch does not sound like a way to achieve this. Sorry. Also, knowing the storm pond has failed to hold the stormwater in the past, would allowing residential development on a floodplain open the town to future lawsuits, frivolous or not, that the pond should overflow and flood out residents. Who would bear the financial burden for the cleanup of the flooded properties? There would be a lawsuit around that. Without this proposed development, we are aware of emergency services being dispatched to assist the removal of children from playing from the edge of the storm pond. If you allow for the development of residential units on this property, we would propose that there will be an increased requirement of the emergency service response. With the continued development expansion in the town of Taber, there is an increase in the volume of paved roadways. These roadways will accumulate more water and snow. Based on the grade of the town, these roadways will exponentially increase the amount of water that enters the drainage system and ultimately the storm pond. The capacity of this pond will face a greater challenge in the future and not leave options for potential expansion, which would be short-sighted. At what cost will the town have to come up with a new plan for dealing with stormwater? When the stormwater was put in 40 years ago, at the council at the time and all council since, except this one, have kept it as a municipal reserve. Any one of them could put this land up for sale or entertain offers, and they didn't for any good reason. Getting back to the fact that this property is a green space, this property is frequently used by not only our neighbors but also surrounding neighborhoods. On any given day, you see children playing, walking their dogs, or just going for a walk. People come and take photos of wildlife or just relax and listen to the sights and sound of nature. It is a safe area to ride a bike, fly a kite, or roll on the grass without the concern of being run over. Several seniors can safely walk their pets in the area. Some in the neighborhood utilize it for overflow parking if they have family or friend gathering. There is no other space that is close to the area that provides the same accessibility to some people. By selling and developing this property, you will remove the green space. You will also affect the ecosystem of the area. Ducks and geese often nest in the field outside the pond. Thank you. The area is frequented not only by waterfowl, but usually deer and other animals. The development of this area will have a negative effect on the ecosystem. There have been additional discussions about the end use of this property. Much discussion revolves around the developer wanting to get the property rezoned for high-density housing. If this is true, it would be prudent for council to disclose that before proceeding with this disposition of the reserve. Understanding that there is some confidentiality matters at play, there is also a balancing act of public disclosure and conversations with people. Not only do they feel this area should not be developed, but to sell this property with the end goal of high-density housing seems unfathomable, illogical, and irresponsible. The next concern is the increase in the amount of traffic in the area. Speed is already a concern on 56th Street. With the sale and development of this land, there will naturally be an increase in vehicle and foot traffic. The back alleys will also see large uptake in traffic. This will add to the safety concerns for the residents in the area. Should there be high-density housing, this problem will be multiplied. The development will directly affect the safety of local residents, who comprise a lot of seniors, children, and pets. In speaking with a local real estate agent, any development of this green space will have a negative impact on our property value. Depending on the type of development, such as high-density housing, it would dramatically decrease our property value. Does council, knowing that this is a probability, affect the likelihood of litigation from affected residents? There is absolutely no reason this property must be sold or developed. Who would benefit by building the housing on this property other than the developer? There is enough available land in a more suitable area that is already properly zoned for such construction and development. Selling a green space next to an undercapacity storm pond that is also an ecosystem will result in a heightened liability exposure. Does not sound like a responsible thing to do, nor is it in the best interest of the community. This disposition and sale of the land, if sold and not developed, it can no longer be utilized as a green space. It is no longer public land. It can no longer be used for the extension of the storm pond. Once you go through the disposition and this land sale, it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to unring that bell. We have had the opportunity to go door to door through our neighbors in this area. Overwhelmingly, the answer is strongly against the disposition of this property and any development thereof. That is putting it mildly. Many people have expressed deep concern, anxiety, and feeling sick about it. Many were going to write letters in opposition of the disposition and development of the property. The conversations we had always came back to the fact that the area is a quiet area where people feel safe and appreciate the value of green space. That, among other reasons, is why they choose to live in the neighborhood. To summarize, along with our neighbors, my wife and I are strongly opposed to the disposition of this property and its development thereof. Selling storm pond expansion and green space land next to a storm pond is illogical and irresponsible. There are liability concerns to the town that must be considered, loss of life by drowning being top of the list. This is a negative impact on the environment and ecosystem in which the storm pond has created through its 40 years of existence. There is the issue that the storm pond on many occasions exceeded its capacity, and the capacity will only further be challenged with future development and growth in the town of Taber. There is the loss of green space will not only affect our neighborhood, but several surrounding neighborhoods as well. This green space is irreplaceable because there are no other replacement options. There is the issue of the increased vehicular traffic in the area with the development of this property. With the development of this property comes additional safety issues for residents, many of which are seniors. With the development of the property comes a reduction in surrounding property values, which would again have a direct financial impact on property owners. It will affect their ability to sell. So again, we ask you, who benefits from the disposition and development of this property in an area that has no business being developed? Yours truly, Harley and Shauna Phillips. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amy. All right, moving on. Is anyone present wishing to speak against the 56th Street and 62nd Avenue removal or reserve designation possibility?
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm Charlene Andres, and I live on 6021 57th Street. I feel that we shouldn't do this because of traffic that'll go back and forth down the back alleys and more people walking around looking into our properties. And it's a nice place to walk your animals. And I feel that if we make this something else than what it is, then it's just going to overtake everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against the potential reserve designation?
Hi there.
Carol?
Carol Donahue, 6013 57th Street. I was quite surprised to hear that this was being considered for like an apartment building or whatever for low-income families, which to me that sounds like children. And that drainage ditch down the alley, we've seen it level full many times. I have video, and that water doesn't just trickle down, it races down. And we've seen kids playing in the ditch. They're always playing in the ditch. And my concern is with the kids. We've had our own grandchildren that we've caught playing in the ditch all the time, and then of course the storm pond too. So that's my biggest concern. There's no fencing there to keep them out, and I would think that the town probably wouldn't fence that area off. So that's our biggest concern, and the traffic in the back alley. It's quite prominent already, and it would sure be nice to keep that traffic down. So.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against the potential removal of reserve designation?
Council, Bill Browning, 6001 57th Street. I too am against this change in land values. I think that what has been said already is very true, that there's a safety concern, there's environment concerns, and there's traffic concerns, obviously. We've had that already in that area. 60 past my house is like a racetrack. And if you get the alleys building into that with more population to the north, we're going to have a problem. Getting back to the ditch on the back side, if that continues to go ahead with that and the water continues to run as it does through there, you're going to end up putting a pipe in there. And if town ends up putting underground pipe in, who's going to pay the bill? The way it's set up right now, it works. The environment is good. The green space is well used. And yes, Monica and I are both against this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against the potential removal of reserve designation?
Afternoon. My name is Harley Phillips. I
Good
live
afternoon.
at 6106 57th Street. I'm not sure why the town wants to sell such a small parcel of land. Who bears the cost of the replacement of the sewer lines in storm sewer? Currently, the storage pond is too small and is normal for the pond to flood in heavy storms. That the screw pump that is a ways from it is too small, or the pipe that services the screw pump is too small. It can't keep up. It's not uncommon to see that pond overflow and flood some of the area, and I expect to see that even worse. In the past, extra pumps have been used with all the water and pumped towards the Tabor Lake. Why has the previous councils left this area as is? One reason is to expand the pond. This is really a dangerous area at this time and should be regarded as such. Has council ever looked at the area, and will all the extra costs be worth the costs that will have to be made when you still have the safety concerns as well? You never followed the MGA up till now. You're wrong. You you should follow the act, and it's a different process that we can follow. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak against the potential removal of reserve designation?
He yielded back his extra time in case I'm on the edge of 5 minutes. I am Harley Phillips. I'm at 6110 57th Street. Without a doubt, the soil in and around the storm pond, including the property in question, is contaminated. For many years, the property at the center of this meeting was used by the town for the dumping of snow that they would remove from the streets. Day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year, they dumped the snow from the town streets. This would have contaminated the soil with chlorides, hydrocarbons, and sulfides, among other things. If the storm pond was not built with the proper liner, or even if it was, the continuous stormwater collection from the town streets would have contaminated the pond and surrounding soil as well with the same chlorides, hydrocarbons, and sulfides. Has there been any studies to confirm if the existing pond was built with a clay or poly liner? If not, will there be? Who is paying the cost for that? Who is paying for the soil testing? Who's responsible for the cleanup of the contaminated soil? Where will the contaminated soil be disposed of, as it has to be at an Alberta Environment Approved Facility or site? If the town does not have their own approved facility or site, who will pay the cost to get one approved? If the town does not have or will not get one approved, who will pay the cost to have the soil removed, trucked, and disposed of in an approved facility? Alberta Environment has made it clear that for residential areas, 100% of the contamination must be removed from the soil. Have studies been done to see how far the contamination has spread and the total scope of the area that needs to be decontaminated? Who will pay the cost of that testing? If it is a requirement to remove contaminated soil beyond this property, so adjacent properties, to be compliant with the Alberta Environment requirement for zero contamination, who will be responsible for that cleanup cost? The current storm pond is relatively close to 56th Street. If removing the contaminated soil requires the removal of roads and infrastructure, who will pay the cost of that? Through my research, I have found that if the storm pond is not blocking the seepage of contamination, steps need to be taken to properly reconstruct that pond. Who's responsible for the cost of that? If there is future contamination to the newly decontaminated area that is going to be, you guys are selling and they're going to build on, and additionally these properties as a result of continued leaching from that storm pond, does the town have adequate insurance for the lawsuit that will arise? Who will pay the cost to decontaminate the area again and for the damage done to people's property? Has an environmental impact assessment been completed for the development or possible development of the land, which will protect the town for future things? With the increase in extreme weather events and the current pond being pushed to capacity, has there been any studies to see if the current pond can handle this new development? Who will pay the cost of those studies? Who will pay the engineering costs to determine the cost and feasibility of the expansion of the current pond? If this new development will push the current storm pond beyond its capacity, who will pay the cost to reconstruct the current pond? If the requirement for this new development to have a separate storm pond, who is responsible for the cost to build it? If by selling the storm pond expansion land, your studies or Mother Nature decides that you require an additional pond or relocation of this pond, there will be engineering costs, inspection costs, new environmental requirements, building and infrastructure costs. This is a non-revenue generating project for the town. Who and how are you going to pay for that? If there is a need for flood mitigation for this new development, including but not limited to flood walls to protect this new development, who is responsible for the environmental studies, inspection, engineering, and construction costs? Have there been studies to determine if the current infrastructure can support this residential development? If no studies have been completed, will there be? Who will pay the cost of the studies, engineering, and possible upgrade of the infrastructure and utilities? Also, how far upstream are you going to have to go to tie into the utilities or upgrade the utilities for it to work downstream? When all is said and done, the cost to the taxpayers of this community could easily exceed $5 or even $10 million. I would venture a guess that the developer is not paying for it. The town will not have access to enough provincial or federal grants to pay for it. You are selling this land for $210,000, so that is not enough money to pay for it. So other than raising taxes for the entire community, how will you pay for everything that is going to be required? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else present wishing to speak against the potential removal of reserve designation 56th Street and 62nd Avenue location?
Hi, I'm Kathleen
Yes.
Phillips. I live at 6106 57th Street in Tabor. It's my understanding that before you can dispose of municipal reserve land, you first go through the public consultation in order to allow the citizens to have a say as to whether the municipal reserve should be kept. According to September 9th minutes, Councillor McLean moved that the council accepted the offer for 2.1 acres at 56th Street and 62nd Avenue for $210,000 and authorized the mayor and chief administrative officer to sign the documents. This was carried unanimously. We weren't consulted. The neighborhood was not consulted. We're being consulted after the sale of the land, which is contrary to the Municipal Government Act. That's my concern. We weren't consulted before the sale. And what's going to be done about that?
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against the potential removal of reserve designation 56th Street and 62nd Avenue? Anyone else wishing to speak against the potential removal of reserve designation 56th Street and 62nd Avenue a second time? Sure.
I did bring some video or pictures if anybody's interested in seeing how the level of the ditch and the lake, the retention pond.
Sure, I think from administration, you're welcome to leave that with us to view at a later time.
Yep, if you provide that to administration, we can forward that on to council.
All right, thank you. And anyone present wishing to speak against the 56th Street and 62nd Avenue potential removal of reserve designation a third and final time? All right, anyone present wishing to speak for the 56th Avenue, 62nd Avenue removal of reserve designation? And anyone wishing to speak for the removal of reserve designation a second time? And anyone present wishing to speak for the reserve designation removal possibility a third and final time? All right, seeing none, let's ask for a motion to accept this information as presented for the public hearing. Councilor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we accept this information as, or presentation as information.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councilor Bruin? Councilor Bruin? Did we lose him, Jordan? Councilor Bruin, in favor? Oh. Councilor Bruin? All right, we'll accept that as carried only. All right, with that, I declare the public hearing now closed, and just advise anybody present related to that, it will also come up related to reserve designation possibilities later in the meeting in item 7.4 and 7.5, Mr. Tebow, correct? All right, thank you.
Yep, that's correct.
All right, and moving on to item 3.2, public hearing related to the 53rd Street removal reserve designation possibility. So with that, I will call that public hearing for 53rd Street South removal of reserve designation meeting to order. and asks that members of the public in attendance who wish to speak against or for the 53rd Street South removal of reserve designation will have a 5-minute time limit for speaking and must state their full name for the record, and also must state if they are speaking for themselves or on behalf of any group or organization. Mr. Thibault?
Again, we've got some public feedback that Amy Allred will come and provide to council.
All right, thank you, Ms. Allred.
Hello, Council. So this municipal reserve piece has also been advertised in the paper for 2 weeks, and signs have been erected on the site as per the MGA. We have received 6 pieces of correspondence, which I will read for the public record. First of all, from Mark Hine, who sent in an email. Dear Mayor and Council of the Town of Tabor, the intent of this communication is to express my concern and opposition for the town's consideration for the disposal of the above noted parcel of property for development purposes. I have been a resident of Tabor for the last 24 years, and my residential property is located within close proximity to the subject municipal property. My concerns are as follows. Number 1, why would the Town of Tabor consider selling green space and a park? It is beautiful, quiet park with trees, playground equipment, and benches. Selling this property would mean the removal of trees, playground equipment, and picnic benches. I use this park 3 times a day to walk my pets. I frequently see families utilize this park for picnics, etc. on Sundays during the summer. Children also use the playground equipment and park frequently. Number 2, currently there is an existing apartment complex southeast of me across the back alley. I do not like the fact that my property will be squeezed between 2 apartment complexes in the future. The existing apartment complex can be quite noisy at times, and my concern is the newly proposed apartment complex may produce the same results. Number 3, the new proposed development would be in close proximity to Westlake School. Is this something the town is comfortable with? This apartment complex will cause increased foot traffic in the school zone. Number 4, parking. Parking on the residential streets in the area is already at a premium. This apartment complex proposal will certainly not alleviate that issue. Number 5, property values. My concern is that with this proposal, that property residential values in the area may decrease as potential buyers may see this as proposed apartment complex as a negative being so close to their property. Number 6, during construction of this proposed apartment construction, road closures and noise levels will be a concern for residents in the area. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Thank you to the mayor and certain members of council who returned my messages and spoke with me one-on-one and listened to my concerns. Kindest regards, Mark. The second one is from Lila Hine, also by email. I wanted to voice my concerns about the above-mentioned proposal. Number 1, this reserve land is well used. Kids play here on the regular. People walk their dogs here, and yes, I see them clean up after their pets. Number 2, there is no street between the school and this proposed project. There is already tight parking in the area. How and where do the youth sports clubs supposed to park when the school ground is used for their games? Number 3, property values. I already have an apartment building directly behind me, and now another one half a block over. I already clean up garbage and cigarette butts off my property from some of the apartment dwellers behind us. I don't wish that to occur on a school playground. Number 4, a public meeting is needed to hear the local residents' concerns, and not just one at 3:30 in the afternoon when the majority of tax-paying residents are at work. A very limited number of the demographic works from 9 till 3. There's a lot of shift work that occurs in the community, 8 and 12-hour shifts, that make attending this meeting impossible. What is needed is at least 2 to 3 meetings so all tax-paying residents in the area will have a chance to voice their concerns and opinions. I understand that the community bylaw states that one meeting is necessary and it will be held at 3:30 in the afternoon. That is a point I will adjust on the next municipal elections, trust you me. There is land that is to the west of the proposed site that sits empty. It backs onto the water treatment area. Why can't this land be utilized instead? And there was a subdivision built to the north of town right across from the new Tabor Christian High School that was supposed to be for lower income housing. Why was that? Why are we not utilizing that land? Why are we not ensuring Tabor low income residents have a chance to live there? And finally, I just want to suggest that there's a lot of subdivisions that are being built in and around Tabor and want to question the town as why are we not looking at some of these areas being designated as low income areas? Why is this not something that we are putting forward to these developers? Why are we not telling them that they can buy this chunk of land and subdivide it, but at the end of the day, there also needs to be a certain number of low-income houses put in that area, or apartment buildings, duplexes, fourplexes, etc. I would suggest that there would be quite a few complaints about this, as it would possibly compete with the aesthetic and look that some of these developers are creating for these subdivisions. But shoving an apartment building or complex in a green space really is not the answer. Lila. The next is from Scott and Linda Melicky. We believe and would like to see this land remain as a recreational area that it is. This is a well-placed park as it is directly alongside the school. This memorial park is put to the good use by adults and children of all ages to enjoy outdoors in the safe off-street location. Why would you take the only green space that is already established, easy to access, and used by so many people to replace it with housing and apartment buildings. We realize that Tabor needs housing, but surely there are more suitable locations to build. Sincerely. The next one is from Scott Gillespie at 3901 53rd Street. I've lived across from Ernest Myers Memorial Park for 17 years now. It's often used during the summer for dog exercise, kids playing sports, and people at the playground hanging out while kids play. I was not aware that this was not a park. With the rock and plaque there, the mature trees, lights, pathways, and the fact that it's irrigated and mowed all summer, it sure seems like a full-size park. I would like to see its status not changed and kept for the use of future generations as a park. We can't always count on the school being open for all to use. If the town expands east and south, there will be many more people looking for a recreation spot. The hearing date is also very inconvenient for anyone with kids. That's the time school ends and they are picking up their kids or expecting them to be home soon. In the very least, I'd like the decision deferred until more information can be found about the group of citizens that put up the plaque. I do not believe they thought the park was a small rectangle isolated up against the school grounds. What is being proposed is hardly big enough for any recreational use. The next one is from Cole Reamsbottom at 5313 39th Avenue. I'm writing to express my concern regarding the proposed sale of this property. As a member of the community, I believe it is important to ensure that any decisions made about the sale or development of public land are done with full consideration of the long-term impact on our town and its residents. I understand the sale of this land may be under discussion for various reasons, but I urge council to carefully evaluate all potential outcomes before proceeding. Some of my concerns I would like to highlight include: number one, public access, and community needs. Will the sale of this land limit public access or create a loss of green space or recreational area for residents? Community areas are important for maintaining a high quality of life, and I believe any decision regarding the land should reflect the needs of the people. Number two, environmental impact. Has an environmental impact study been conducted? It is essential that any development or sales take into account the potential environmental consequences and ensures that any proposed plans do not harm our town's natural resources. Number three, transparency and public input. It is crucial that the town's residents have the opportunity to provide feedback and be involved in the decision-making process. Open forums, town hall meetings, and other forms of public consultations should be held to ensure that the voices of those directly impacted are heard. Number four, long-term planning. How does the sale of this land fit into the town's overall master plan or future growth strategy? It is important to understand how this decision aligns with the town's goals for sustainable development and welfare of the community. I respectfully request that council take these concerns into account when discussing the potential sale of this land. I believe that through collaboration and thoughtful consideration, we can arrive at a solution that benefits all stakeholders and preserves the integrity of our community. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. I look forward to hearing about council's plans and any opportunities for public input. And the last one is from Chayea Reamsbottom at 5313 39th Avenue. I'm writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed disposal of municipal land at this property. As a concerned resident of the town of Tabor, I believe that the sale or repurposing of this land would not serve the best interests of the community and could have longer-term negative consequences for both current and future generations. I respectfully urge council to reconsider this decision for the following reasons. Number one, public need and community access. Municipal land reserves are valuable public assets that provide opportunities for future community development such as parks, recreation, and green spaces. Once sold, this land may be permanently lost as a resource for the town. The current and future generations of residents may find themselves deprived of much-needed public space that contribute to a high quality of life. Number two, long-term planning and flexibility. The municipal land reserve should be seen as a strategic asset providing flexibility for future growth, infrastructure, and community projects. Selling this land could limit the town's ability to adapt to future changing needs, particularly as the town grows or new priorities arise. It is essential that we retain such reserves to ensure that the town has the capacity to meet unforeseen demands in the years to come. Environmental and ecological impact. If the land has ecological values such as providing habitat for wildlife or contributing to local environmental sustainability, disposing of it could result in significant environmental degradation. The town has a responsibility to protect its natural resources and preserve green spaces for the well-being of its residents and the environment. Number four, community engagement and transparency. Decisions of this magnitude should not be made without meaningful consultations with the community. I urge the council to hold open forums, public hearings, or community meetings to ensure residents have the opportunity to voice their concerns and offer alternate solutions. Transparency in this process is essential for maintaining trust and ensuring that council is acting in the best interest of the public. Number five, potential for future development. If this land is sold to private interests, it is possible the development will not align with the needs or values of the broader community. We risk losing control over how the land is used, and private development could prioritize short-term profits over long-term community benefits. It is crucial that the council consider carefully whether it is the best course of action, particularly when there are alternate ways to manage and utilize the land for the benefit of all residents. For these reasons, I respectfully urge council to halt the proposed disposal of this land to explore alternative solutions that will serve the best interests of the community. I believe the Municipal Land Reserve can play a key role in shaping the future of our town, and hopeful council will make a more cautious and thoughtful approach in its decision-making. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. I look forward to hearing from you and any opportunities to discuss this issue further. Sincerely.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Allred. All right, is anyone present wishing to speak against the potential 53rd Street South removal reserve designation? Anyone present wishing to speak against the 53rd Street South removal reserve designation possibility? Second time? Anyone here present wishing to speak against the 53rd Street South removal reserve designation possibility a third and final time? All right, seeing none. Is there anyone present wishing to speak for the potential removal of reserve designation? Anyone wishing to speak for 53rd Street South removal potential reserve designation the second time? Is there anyone present wishing to speak for the 53rd Street South potential removal of reserve designation a third and final time? All right, seeing none. With that, can I ask for a motion to accept the information as presented? Councilor Renford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council accepts for information the input received at this public hearing for removal of municipal reserve designation at 53rd Street South.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councilor Bruin? Councilor Bruin, are you with us? We'll record that as carried also, please. And also declare the public hearing closed. On to item 3.3, related to public hearing for direct control development, application 24-228. Call that meeting to order. And again, members of the public in attendance who wish to speak against or for the direct control development application 24-228 will have a 5-minute time limit for speaking and must state their full name for the record and must state if they are speaking for themselves or on behalf of any group or organization. Mr. Tebow?
So we'll hand this one over to Chris Egan and Selena Newberry to inform council of any public input.
All right, thank you. Mr. Egan, Ms. Newberry?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
So before us today, we have a public hearing for a direct control application that we're looking for an approval for later in the meeting. We did advertise this in the paper for 2 weeks. We sent a letter out to all the adjacent landowners within 100 meters, and we did advertise it on the Town of Taber's website. We hold these public hearings for direct controls because there's no appeal to a direct control, and this gives you the opportunity to hear any concerns or comments that the citizens may have on the application. At the time of writing the RFD, request for decision, we had no comments come in, and we've had none come in since as well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Egan, anything to add there? Fairly straightforward. All right, thank you. All right, with that, anyone in attendance wishing to speak against the direct control development application 24-228? Anyone wishing to speak against direct control development application 24-228 a second time? And anyone wishing to speak against the direct control development application for 24-228 a third and final time? All right, seeing none. Is there anyone present wishing to speak for the direct control development application 24-228? And anyone wishing to speak for the direct control development application 24-228 a second time? And anyone wishing to speak for the direct control development application 24-228 a third and final time? All right, seeing none. With that, I can also have a motion to accept as presented, please. Councilor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that council accepts for information the input received at this public hearing for direct control development application 24-228.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councilor Bruin? Mr. Tebow?
Just wanted to mention Councilor Bruin can actually hear us. He's been texting me, but he can't seem to be able to speak back to us.
Okay, all right, well, we will record that. It's carried as well. And I will declare that public hearing closed as well. All right, on to item 3.4, public hearing related to land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 for redistricting. Call that public hearing for land use bylaw 21-2024 to order. And once again, members of the public in attendance who wish to speak against or for the land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 for redistricting will have a 5-minute time limit for speaking and must state their full name for the record, and also must state if they are speaking for themselves or on behalf of any group or organization. Mr. Tebow?
So again, we'll have Ms. Selena Newberry and Chris Egan available for council. Just a reminder that the first reading of this land use bylaw amendment did happen at a previous council meeting, and this is the continuation of that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Newberry?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
So, as per our Municipal Government Act regulations, when we amend our land use bylaw, we do have to have a public hearing. So this particular amendment is for redistricting. So we have advertised the public hearing in the paper for 2 weeks. We have sent out a letter to any of the adjacent landowners within 100 meters, and we have advertised it on our Town of Tabor website as well. At the time, we produced the request for decision, and up till today, I have had no comments come in on this application, or this hearing.
None whatsoever. All right, thank you. Mr. Egan, nothing further?
Nothing to add.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone present wishing to speak against land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 for redistricting? Anyone present wishing to speak against land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 a second time? And anyone present wishing to speak against land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 for redistricting a third and final time? All right, seeing none. Is there anyone wishing to speak for land use bylaw 21-24 for redistricting? Anyone present wishing to speak for the land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 for redistricting a second time? Anyone present wishing to speak for the land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 for redistricting a third and final time? Seeing none, also have a motion, accept that as information, please. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that council accepts for information the input received at this public hearing for land use bylaw amendment 21-2024 for redistricting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Bruin.
I'm sorry, I've been with the meeting the whole time, but you guys have not been able to hear me, so I've moved over to my cell phone. So I apologize to the people that are there right now, but I was listening and I appreciate everyone's comments.
Very well. Thank you, Councillor Bruin. With that, I will also declare this public hearing closed. And moving on to Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a matter of interest, I think that the gallery, the people that are present should be made aware that we're going to discuss the subjects later on in the meeting, but it might be an hour and a half. So if you guys want to stick around, you're welcome, but it's kind of boring, isn't it? Just for matter of information, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Beckering. Yeah, it's we never know exactly how long that could take, but it could be, but hopefully less time involved. But we will most certainly be discussing the questions and comments made and going further as a result. All right, thank you. And thank you all for attending and for all your comments and input as well. Moving on to the adoption of minutes, item 4.1, minutes of the organizational meeting of council, October 28th, 2024. Mr. Tebow.
Minutes are in front of council. Administration has nothing to add to them.
All right, thank you. Anything arising? So I'm prepared to make that motion. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council adopts the minutes of the organizational meeting of council held on October 28th, 2024 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 4.2, minutes of the regular meeting of council, October 28th, 2024. Mr. Tebow.
The regular meeting minutes are in front of you, and administration has nothing to add to those.
All right, thank you. So I'm prepared to make that required motion. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on October 28th, 2024 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously, thank you. Item 5, business arising from the minutes, there are none. Item 6, bylaws, as per the amended motion. Moving on to item 7.1, ahead of item 6.1. Municipal election 2025, Alberta Municipal Affairs election decisions. Mr. Tebow.
So each year, council goes through this particular topic for municipal elections, and it has to be decided before the end of this year how council wishes to conduct those elections. I do have Megan Brennan with me, who can speak to any questions if there was something that you read that you thought might need some explanation.
All right, any questions arising? Right, none whatsoever. So I'm prepared to make the required motion. Councilor Frith?
Sure. Do these need to be three separate motions? Yes? Okay, sounds good. Can do that. I move that council agrees that no changes are requested to be made by bylaw for changing the number of councillors in the municipality pursuant to section 143 of the Municipal Government Act.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Favor.
Chair unanimously, thank you. The second required motion, Councilor Rumford, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that a council agrees that no changes are requested to be made by the bylaw in that the election of councillors be by vote of the electors of the whole municipality, as has been done in the past, and not by wars pursuant to section 147 and 148 of the Municipal Government Act.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously, thank you. And Councilor Sorensen? Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make the motion that council agrees that no changes are requested to be made by bylaw in that the chief elected official, the mayor, shall be selected by vote of the electors and has been done in the past rather than appointment from among the elected councillors pursuant to section 150 of the Municipal Governing Act.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously, thank you. And the Councilor Beckering?
Number 4.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that pursuant to Section 73 of the Local Authority Election Act, directs that an advanced vote to be held in 2025 with the returning officer to determine the days and hours when the advanced vote is to be held. And pursuant to Section 79 of the Local Authorities Election Act, directs the returning officer to arrange for voting in 2025 by elector assistance at home to the attendance of 2 deputies at the residence of an elector during the hours of an advanced voting station is open, in order to take the votes of an elector who, because of physical disability, is unable to attend a voting station or an advanced voting station to vote. And 3, pursuant to Section 80 of the Local Authorities Election Act, designates the following institutional voting stations for the town of Taber for the 2025 municipal election. Number 1, Taber and District Healthcare Complex, located at 5326 50th Avenue, Taber, Alberta. Number 2, Clearview Lodge, located at 4730 50th Avenue, Taber, Alberta. And the Good Samaritan Society, commonly known as Lindenview, located at 4700 64th Avenue, Taber, Alberta.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously, thank you. All right, that's got that covered, Mr. Tebow.
It does. We're good. That's a mouthful.
All right, yes, it is. Moving on to back to item 6.1, proposed municipal elections bylaw 26-2024. Mr. Tebow.
Okay, so we had to read the last thing to get to the actual bylaw. So these are the bylaw adjustments. Again, this will be very similar to what happened during the last election. Recommendations there, and again, Megan Brennan is here to help with any questions, should there be any.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right. So I'm prepared to make the first required motion. Councilor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the council gives first reading to the proposed municipal elections bylaw 26-2024 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councilor Bruin.
Sorry, in favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor McLean.
I move that council give second reading to the proposed municipal elections bylaw 26-2024 at this meeting.
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the third required motion? Councillor Sorensen.
I can do that, Mr. Mayor.
I beat you to it, Jeff.
Councillor Sorensen is up. Well, we'll let you do the next one.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council unanimously agrees to proceed to third and final reading of the proposed municipal elections bylaw 26-2024 at this meeting.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Councillor Bruin, the fourth required motion.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor, that council gives third and final reading to the municipal elections bylaw 26-2024 at this meeting.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 6.2, second and third reading for land use bylaw amendment 21-2024. Mr. Tebow.
Again, I'll have Ms. Selena Newberry and Chris Egan come forward. This is second and third reading, and this also pertains to the public hearing that just took place earlier.
All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
So before you, we have a request for a second and third reading for a land use redistricting. This particular property currently is zoned as M1, which is light industrial, and they're looking to go to an M2, which is a medium industrial. The reason for this application is they would like to expand their activities on their property, but they're currently considered a non-conforming use. The use they would need to be is in the M2 district as a discretionary use. So by rezoning or redistricting, they could then apply to expand their operation.
All right. Thank you. Any questions arising? Right. Councillor Sorensen.
I'm just in favor of this, and so I'd like to make the first motion.
All right.
That council gives second reading to bylaw 21-2024 to amend land use bylaw 13-2020 as presented.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Councillor Bruin.
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Renford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make the second motion. I make a motion that council gives third reading to bylaw 21-2024 to amend land use bylaw 13-2020 as presented.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?
Favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 7.2, 2025 Police Commission operating budget. Mr. Tebow.
I see that we have Mr. John McDonald, the chair of the Police Commission, and Chief Gramabella here, so they'll come up and present their operational budget.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon.
Councilors. You have in front of you the following statement contains Taber Police Service operating and capital budget request for 2025 and our annual policing plan as required by 21(1) of the Police Act. The costs associated with our budget increases this year are attributed to the resignation last year of 3 officers. These departures have left a large gap we're trying to fill through senior officer recruitment and hiring of recruitment constables. Also, an increase to the budget is the digital management evidence clerk position required by the impact of body cams as ordered by the minister. The position commenced 2024, but is being felt in the 2025 budget. Since the commencement of the budget deliberations and submissions, we have been fortunate to hire an experienced officer, which has reduced our funding request, and that's the good news. We still anticipate for 2 positions left, and that positions with $22,500 tuition costs and $27,000 stipend each. On top of that, we need to uniform each new officer, recruit or experienced, at the cost of about $9,000 each. The worst case budget scenario is that we'll pay close to $117,000 if we hire 2 recruits for tuition and stipend. Unfortunately, we are not able to give an answer on recruiting. So for budget reasons, we need to budget if we are hiring 2 recruits. The bright side to the new recruits is that the yearly salary required would be less than a first-class constable, and those savings would be observable in the wage budget lines. We are purchasing ballistic helmets for use by our members. Each car will have a helmet. They'll be kept with our ceramic body armor and shields. The cost will be $6,000 and is required for officer safety. We received notice in September 2024 that the City of Chestermere and Siksika Nation would like to engage our dispatch for call taking and dispatch for their CPOs. We will anticipate revenues of $90,000 for this intermunicipal work in 2025. Unfortunately, the Coaldale CPO program is in a hiatus, so we will be losing about $10,000 in revenue. There, however, one other group has shown interest, but no MOUs have been signed, and we hope to land this partnership in 2025. Council has been made aware of the capital request of the commission has been approved. As these items move forward, the ask includes 2 police vehicles in 2025, 1 vehicle within our normal fleet cycle, and the second vehicle funded by revenue from the MD of Taber partnership. Our fleet is not increasing in size. Also, the purchase of simulation software and hardware will allow us to train virtually the utility trailer to haul to and from shooting range equipment, capital funds to commence the design and possible expansion of the Taber Police Service building. These capital items will be reviewed further by council at a later meeting. The commission has gone through the budget line by line. In the view of this is lean. It has little contingency and is what is required to provide adequate, effective policing to the community of Taber, 2025.
All right, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any questions arising? Councilor Bruin, any questions?
I'm just trying to catch up with my laptop here. So you're requesting an additional 250,000 approximately, correct?
That's correct.
Now, how many other police forces have these ballistic helmets in their itinerary?
I would think they all do.
The RCMP carry them in their cars?
I can't speak to the RCMP, no.
It seems like I'm just trying to justify the 250,000. It seems like one of our highest budget items is our police force, so I want to be sure that we're really being careful here.
Well, I'll ask the chief to explain a little bit further.
Sure. Chief Bill?
Mayor and council, the budget actually, it's fairly, from my perspective, it's fairly simple to understand where the increases have come from. 3 officers leaving requires a significant increase to budget to retrain and provide the funds necessary for that. The stipend alone, as well as the field recruit training amounts, equate to about, well, it's $81,000 and $67,000. We're fortunate to be able to remove a portion of that due to the fact that we've hired a senior officer who started actually today. I swore them in this morning. So that's good news, and we'll continue to try to do that with an anticipated hire in February of another senior constable. I just can't guarantee that at this point in time, so I have to budget for those monies. Also, the Minister of Public Safety, Minister Ellis, in 2024 announced that we had to use body cams. It was mandatory for municipal police agencies in the province. We budgeted $80,000 for a position in 2023, which was approved in 2024 to be hired in July. We delayed that due to some budget issues and staffing issues, and are in the final processes of making that selection now. But that will be felt in 2025 for a full-time equivalency of that position to handle our digital evidence management that comes through the door. If you take away those 2 numbers, we don't have a budget increase. We're also bringing in $90,000 worth of revenue that is anticipated for 2025. That I'm not sure of any other department in the town that actually brings revenue in to that extent associated to service delivery outside of maybe Public Works and engineering. But and as you know, this has been no secret from council or commission for that matter. The money that we bring in as revenue offsets our communications operations that happen at the front counter and through dispatch and 911, and allows us to build capacity there to meet the contracts and MOUs that we have in place with our other partners at no cost to the town of Taber taxpayer. So with regards to the $6,000 for the ballistic helmets, respectfully, with the inquiries that have happened across Canada associated to the mass casualties commission that occurred in Nova Scotia, and the requirement for police agencies to ensure safety of their officers responding to serious and life-threatening calls for service, a $6,000 investment in ballistic helmets lets me sleep at night.
All right, thank you, Chief.
That 6,000 is per officer, correct?
No, that's the total cost.
Total cost of the.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that as being per officer.
Okay, no, just to reiterate also, that's basically designed for officer safety, as you said, Chief Abella. And,
So it's a Kevlar helmet
right.
that is adjustable, so it fits all officers.
Okay.
And it protects their helmet against, their head against small arms fire associated to calls that we respond to.
Okay, just a safety enhancement for officer safety in general.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Counselor Sorensen?
A lot of the comments I was going to make was discussed by the chief, but I did take part in the budget meeting. We did go line by line, and everything was justified according to the expense that needed, or the money that needed to be spent. And unfortunately, 3 officers did leave the police department, and that's just bad timing, or just, something unfortunate that had to happen. And now, they need to be found, or replacements need to be found, and that's why there's an increase in the budget. So I can respectfully say that I'm in favor of this budget as I sat through the deliberations.
All right, thank you. Counselor Beckering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for council's information, council should be extremely careful to address line items within the police commission's budget, because I think we're treading on fairly thin ice there. I think council should be concerned about the total volume of the budget itself, the total dollars, and question that perhaps, but not to get into the discussion of line items, because I think the Police Act addresses that, I believe, Mr. McDonald. And having said that, I accept the explanation given by yourself and the chief. However, 5.6 is 5.6, and that's a lot of bloody money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Just to clarify, I'm not sure if that was clarified today. I know it's came out before, but as a result of the 3 members leaving, for that length of time, we're actually saving that wage until you're able to replace those members, correct?
Yes, so Commission and Council is aware that any money that we don't spend in our operating budget on wage lines or other items that we don't, that we're unable to spend, comes back to Council as general revenue to offset either next year's budget or to move into capital reserves.
Right.
Mr. Orwa might be able to provide you that number at your regular budget meeting associated to what that figure may be. I don't have it in front of me.
All right. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Counselor Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The $180,000 that you're forced to pay it, like you can't, not as part of the Police Act, you're gonna have to. That is a majority of the increase. In our public hearings, we've had people talk about scare of crime. I imagine everybody back there is supporting a local police force, a town police force. That 180, I think we gotta look at that as a big part of the 5.6%. And I mean, that's our provincial government mandating that, and we're stuck with it a bit.
All right, thank you.
Can I just speak to one more issue, sir?
Sure, absolutely.
In our policing plan, if you look at our page 5 of the policing plan that's before you, this year in 2024, I'm not sure if council's aware, but the provincial government through the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services actually established 5 policing priorities that have to come into municipal police commissions for prioritization within their policing plans. These are additions to what commission provides direction on, as well as what is provided to us by council and stakeholders through our focus groups for incorporation into our policing plan. These will add, these pressures that have been identified, not pressures, the priorities that have been identified by the province are out of our hands. There are things that we have to do, and the challenge that we will have is to do that fiscally responsible moving forward as well. I'm just saying there's external pressures on our budget that aren't driven by this police chief or by our commission, that are coming from the province, that are actually a significant contributor to what you're seeing here today in the budget, especially that $80,000 that had to be set aside for the public safety communications manager. If you were to remove that position alone from our budget, you would see that our budget increase would only be 2.75%.
All right, that's a fair difference, absolutely. All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I do have the
All
cop to pop ratio if Councillor
Sure.
Beckering wanted to know.
Yeah, absolutely, you bet.
Yeah.
Do you have that number there?
I do. So I'd first like to ask you, sir, where do you think our population is sitting right now?
I believe we're over 10.
You think we're over 10?
10 plus, yeah.
I did our ratio at a 9,000 population, so we're sitting at 1 to 562 people, and the provincial average is 1 to 550. So our police officers are still in keeping with an average across the country, and we're actually a little higher. If we're at 10,000, we're at 1 to 625. I can tell you that I am not asking for an increase to our complement strength of police officers. We have sufficient police officers employed with the Taber Police Service within our crime index and our crime mandate to deal effectively with the issues that we have, and I don't anticipate that changing for the foreseeable future unless we see a large increase in population.
All right, and just to clarify, the actual average is what, Chief?
1 to 550.
1 to 550, okay, perfect, thank you. Any other questions? Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Bruin?
Yes, I'd like to thank the Police Commission Chair, Mr. McDonald, for the presentation. I've never doubted the budget they put forward because they've run a tight ship for the last 11 years, I guess. I've been on council, so I appreciate what they put forward. It's just we've got to justify the increase to our taxpayers, so that's why I question some of it. So, but as Councillor Beckering said, it is us to approve the amount, not the item lines.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Right, just require an informational motion, Mr. Thibault?
No motion required,
need
just the
motion.
first round of deliberations.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Your Worship. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much for your time. Oh, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 7.3, DP 24-228, 5508 46th Avenue Restaurant Shopping Center approval. Mr. Thibault.
Ms. Newberry and Mr. Egan will come up. This is a direct control, which is why it's coming back in front of council.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
So before you, you have an application. We've previously approved a shopping center on this location. So this particular application would be going inside of that shopping center, and it would be for a restaurant. It would most of the parking and stuff was all considered under the shopping center, so we are mostly looking at the signage and stuff as well as the use itself. So there are a few variances here for the number of fascia signage, so varied from 2 to 4. So this property has 2 roadways, so it would be allowed 2, and they have what we would consider to be 4, so we're just asking to increase that. It's not out of line with any of the other restaurants that this particular company owns and puts up. The other would be from freestanding signs is from 1 to 6, and so there's one larger freestanding sign at the front, and then there are a few freestanding signs for the drive-through. So again, perfectly in line with other developments, especially of this particular restaurant. And then the other couple variances that are required are for the one particular, like the freestanding signs are supposed to be 45 meters between, and they're not, so we're asking for a reduction in that variance. And then we are also asking for a reduction of the 20-meter distance between a between signs as well.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Right, someone prepared to make the required motion? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council approves development permit DP 24-228 for a restaurant located at an approved shopping center at 5508 46th Avenue, lots 23, block 21, plan 1410557, with the following 28 conditions as listed.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. All right, just for council's ask here, we didn't deal with this earlier, but we have this in reverse as the 53rd Street designation first and or the 56th Street, 62nd Avenue second. Should we deal with that, the 62nd Avenue one first, in consideration of our residents and tenants? Yeah, you want to leave this as is? Okay. All right. All right, let's move on to item 7.4, then removal of reserve designation 53rd Street South. Mr. Thibault.
If we could get Miss Amy Allred to come up, she'll provide the background. And we're expecting a robust discussion between council and administration around the designation removal. So over to Amy.
All right, thank you, Ms. Allred.
Hello, council. So this item is for the proposed removal of the reserve designation at 53rd Street and 40th Avenue South. This designation was applied to the property in 1978 as part of a subdivision requirement. It is a municipal reserve which offers more flexibility in its use and disposal as compared with conservation or environmental reserves. The MGA in section 666 states that developers can either set aside a portion of land as reserve land, or they can pay the fair market price for the required portion of reserve land. The land or the payment are calculated on a percentage basis for the whole subdivision. Removal of municipal reserve is common practice in Alberta. There are 5 other municipalities who have removed designations in the past year. If council should decide to remove the designation and dispose of the land, the proceeds of the sale are required to be used to support other recreational purposes in the town. Section 671 of the MGA states that money provided in place of municipal reserve must be accounted for separately and used for the following purposes: a public park, a public recreation area, school board purpose, or to separate areas of land that are used for different purposes. This parcel of land can be subdivided to keep a portion of Ernest Myers Park intact. Ernest Myers was a longtime teacher and principal at Westlake School, and we do not wish to detract from what has been dedicated to his memory. This would include moving the memorial rock to the portion retained as parkland. We have combed through our records and worked with the museum to find any records related to this park and its history, and other than an obituary for Ernest Myers, we weren't able to find anything. Proceeds from the sale of this land could be used to enhance and beautify the remaining park spaces. The subdivided space would be a great place for a storm pond, and the addition of walking paths, benches, and greenery could create a community recreational space for the whole neighborhood. The MGA does not specify that the money for the sale of former reserve land or money instead of reserve land has to be used in that specific neighborhood. Proceeds could go to any type of public park or recreation areas. Projects such as retrofitting current parks to be safer and more accessible, creating new features at local parks, upgrading current recreational facilities, or any specific recreation-based projects would also fit into this category. So this request in particular is the removal of the reserve designation on the land title. Any development on the land would require a separate public hearing and engagement piece, such as notifying the residents and a public hearing, which is common for our development permits. Anything like environmental studies, traffic studies, stormwater studies are typically done in the subdivision and development permit stage.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, a variety of things were brought up through the letters you submitted, or you read out, Amy?
Yes.
Related to that, anything from the parking, green space concerns, traffic, property value concerns, trash concerns, the meadows not considered in comparison as an alternate location, keeping the recreation area as such, status quo, used for dog sports, keeping as currently is in place, needing full consideration from the public, back to green space concerns, environmental impact study, public feedback and long-term planning, definitely not in the best interests. And, just to clarify, Mr. Tebow, I guess, can you add to that if there was any environmental impact involvement or study done or required in that regard that you're aware of?
So that wouldn't normally take place, Mr. Mayor, until a development permit comes in or development process. And to date, administration has no development application come forward for this property.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy, you mentioned that a portion of his land could be set aside for recreational purpose or for whatever reason, besides building on it. Can you give me an idea how big that would possibly be? I know it's just dependent upon development, but.
Yeah, it would depend upon the developer and what they plan to build there, but my best guess would be about half an acre.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
I have two, if that's all right.
Sure.
So the first one is in relation to Councillor Beckering's discussion. My understanding is all of the proceeds then would have to go into recreation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And someone commented in regards to there isn't a through street there currently. So how are we gonna alleviate that if we did go through this?
Mr. Tebow?
Again, Councillor Sorensen, we don't have a development permit come our way. There could be multiple ways to handle that. There doesn't necessarily need to be a roadway that goes through there. There's plenty of different ways to develop this property that doesn't have to include an additional road.
All right, thank you. Let's get it covered. Okay, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we are talking about the removal of the reserve designation, correct? We are not debating the merits or detractions of a development on that?
That's correct.
Okay. So if we were to remove the reserve designation and sell the property, then before a development permit or when a development permit is received, do we have the opportunity to comment on that or to take a look at that?
I'll let Selena answer that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So, as you were saying, this is just to remove the reserve designation. There's several other development processes that would have to happen before we actually get to development there. Land use amendments, subdivision, and then your development permit. And most of the concerns would come up through there. Land use amendment, public hearings. We would have more public hearings, more notice would be sent out. Public consultation would probably occur in this particular case just due to the nature. And then the subdivision would have another stage where a variety of agencies are notified. Again, neighbors within 100 meters would be notified. They don't have the ability to appeal a subdivision, but they do have the ability to be heard at that point. Then when we get to development stage, there would be anything that is considered discretionary use. We go through the Municipal Planning Commission if it's not turned into a direct control. And again, there they would have the ability to appeal at that point and they would be notified. And so there are several steps where there would be consultation and notification of the public going forward.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In order to get the ball rolling here, I'll move that council request the removal of the reserve designation on the property of Plan 781-0080, Block 54, Lot R1, and that council directs administration to put together a plan to incorporate community recreation and beautification for this neighborhood with the sale proceeds.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering. I just have a clarification question. I guess it's just a bit confusing to me anyway, as far as what municipal reserve land can be used as if this format follows through with the removal. So are we completely comfortable, as far as you're concerned, Ms. Allred or Mr. Tebow, that it doesn't have to be just solely back to some form of recreation? I know we talked about the money piece, but does that mean that it can still be, some development can also be allowed as opposed to just recreation, or can it be flexible in that regard, either one?
I'll let Amy speak to it first, and I'll augment if need be.
Yes, are you speaking specifically about the reserved park area here? Or
Yeah, basically, it's
if we
all,
were to
it's
sell a
it's
portion?
municipal reserve designated currently, right?
Yes,
So that's the question as far as that goes.
Okay.
If we were to go through with that
right.
and
So
remove that, what next steps have to be done?
yeah, so if we remove remove the remove the I can't say it. Remove the municipal reserve designation, the proceeds from the sale would need to go back into recreation somewhere in the community. So the MGA specifically states that a public park, a public recreation area, school board purposes, or to separate areas of land that are used for different purposes. So we did confirm this with a lawyer through the AUMA, who said that it can go back into any type of
Okay.
recreation project in town.
Okay, and part of my concern is that was in honor of Mr. Ernest Myers for that, his background and community involvement and everything attached to that for that honor. So that could change things quite a lot in that regard also, correct? With the change, if that were to go through.
Yes, well, we would hope that the reserve piece of land would be the Ernest Myers Memorial Park, and that we would be able to upgrade it with the proceeds.
Despite whatever else might be going in there. All right. All right, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? Councilor Renford?
So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're just talking about pulling the reserve, the municipal reserve off this, so this is step one, and we're just gonna start picking and choosing which municipal reserves we use to then develop, or, we can just go to the next, right? With having the meadows out there, previous councils have put areas aside for the town to develop on, right? How much, when we looked into doing the meadows, I guess looking to administration, when we looked at, maybe you weren't even here for the meadows either, which is a tough one, I know, Darren. Obviously we passed on changing a bunch of municipal reserve land, I imagine, or as it's never come up before. It just seems to be a very hot button issue all of a sudden, where it seems like it was never really talked about very much in past councils, right? So I just feel like once we rip the Band-Aid off one, we're just gonna start picking and choosing them all to the benefit of the town, not to just collect, to better the town. I understand that's what we're trying to do here, but this is the start of something, is my concern to council.
All right, thank you. Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and hopefully, Amy, you can help me out here, because I think we've gone through some type of training that we don't want all of our low-income housing to just be in one designated area. You kind of want them to feel part of the community and place them strategically. Is this a concept that we're using when trying to maybe focus on redesignating this parcel of land?
I'll let Darren take it.
So again, I'll reiterate, we do not have a development application, so I can't tell you I don't know what it is that might get developed on there. When and if we were to get something, it would go through a development process that would speak to all those types of things. So administration is not, we've had developers come and ask about properties. This was one that a developer had asked about. Multiple developers actually have asked about. And we've had discussions around multi-residential housing, but we really have nothing to produce or to show that it's going to be a, dense or low income or anything like that until we actually have an application come our way.
Can we just,
Sure.
sorry,
Yep, no.
but can you just clarify, am I correct that we don't want all the same type of housing in one certain particular area? Is that kind of the concept we're going for?
In the town and in general, I would say you probably have, your designations are decided for density, so R1s, R2s, and there's a mixture of those in different areas. And so if you look around town, you can see that there's, R1s, R2s, R3s, R4s, those different designations are everywhere. Is there an overall plan that we're trying to adhere to? I mean, really, it gets decided by the development authority as to what they would like to see for residential. So again, administratively, we don't try and drive any of that. Best practices and MPC and development processes lend themselves to various developments in various neighborhoods. And I do believe it tries to get, the saturation does try to get distributed in such a way that's not everything in one spot, I guess. So generally, I'd say you're right, but specifically, I can't speak to every single development in the town.
All right, thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's tough to debate some of the concerns or to address some of the concerns when this isn't necessarily the appropriate time to do it. Like, I understand a lot of the concerns that were brought up about potentially developing this, but if we're only talking about removing the reserve designation, then I think I am speaking in favor of the motion, because the park space will remain. The money or the proceeds, it says in the motion, will stay in that neighborhood, which I think is very important. They need to stay there to beautify and enhance that park. And I'm trying to weigh our need for housing in our community with the concerns of the neighborhood. I understand that the people that live there, they use this area. My hope is that they'll be able to continue to use this area. And after Ms. Newberry's explanation, I believe that there is the ability to address these concerns moving forward in the process. So at this point, I am speaking in favor of this motion.
All right, thank you. Councillor Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess one last thing directed to administration. When we have sold developments like in the past, and the developer either can pay fair market value for that reserve land, or we can make it reserve and keep it parks. What have we done in the past? Is it just been dependent on the developer, or have we pushed to always keep a portion of the land, or has it just been situational?
I don't know the answer to that.
Administratively, I don't know the answer to that either. The default process is to land on just putting land in place, but we could very easily not have ever had this land and money could have been provided instead, but.
Yeah, because it just based on whenever they developed this in 1978, if they would have just paid the extra, that would have been housing, I imagine, or something else. Could have been anything.
Correct.
And it would have been done. I just was kind of seeing, so the default process is to have some reserve land.
Yeah, with lack of any funds coming our way, that's the only other option.
That's the only other option.
Yeah, just again to clarify should this be approved, the removal of municipal reserve designation is definitely the next step to potentially develop, albeit we don't know exactly what's developers may have in mind, an idea, I believe, but if that were to occur, there's no doubt there'll be an impact there, the change. That's 1.6 acres, I think it is, all total.
2.1 acres total.
2.1 for the total. Well, I think it was 1.6 was a sale possibility, right? Correct. So it can't help but impact that to some degree with some of the concerns raised and many of the concerns raised. So I don't know that I can support that as a result with the many concerns raised through the letters that Ms. Allred submitted tonight. Councilor Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think maybe my statement earlier that it's a step one of all of them. My more thought of with the school there, no matter what the development is, it could help, attendance to that school, which I know is low. So maybe looking at them as, doing one would make me think we would do them all. I think they're more situational. So looking at this one in this area, I think I would be in support of not being reserved, taking the reserve status away.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Opposed? Carried. right. Moving on to item 7.5, removal of reserve designation 56th Street, 62nd Avenue. Mr. Tebow.
So again, we'll have Amy go through, provide an explanation on this particular parcel. And this is the parcel to the north.
Right, thank you, Ms. Allred.
Hi, Council. So we are here with another proposed removal of a reserve designation for a 2.1 acre parcel at 56th Street and 62nd Avenue North. This designation was applied to the property in 1982 as a part of a subdivision requirement. It is a municipal reserve which offers more flexibility in its use and disposal as compared with conservation or environmental reserves. The MGA in section 666 states that developers can either set aside a portion of land as a reserve or they can pay fair market price for the acquired portion of land. The land and payment are calculated on a percentage basis for the whole subdivision. Removal of the municipal reserve is common practice in Alberta. There are 5 other municipalities who have removed designations in the past year. If council should decide to remove the designation and dispose of the land, the proceeds of the sale are required to be used to support other recreational purposes in the town. Section 671 of the MGA states that the money provided in place of municipal reserve must be accounted for separately and used for the following purposes: a public park, recreation area, school board purpose, or a separate areas of land that are used for different purposes. So this parcel of land in particular is adjacent to a large green space of 17 acres with an incorporated storm pond. It is an option to use the proceeds of the sale from the 2.1 acres to beautify the storm pond space. Creating walking trails, adding benches, trees, and greenery will make this a place that the whole neighborhood can enjoy. The storm pond is a natural place for wildlife, and this will not be affected by the removal of the designation or future development on these 2.1 acres. There are other options for the proceeds as well, like retrofitting current parks to be safer and more accessible, creating new features at local parks, upgrading recreational facilities, or specific recreation-based projects. So again, this proposal is for the removal of the designation only. Any development on the land requires a separate public engagement, please, including notification of residents and a public hearing. Things like the environmental studies, parking, traffic, and stormwater studies would be part of the subdivision and development permit requirements.
All right, thank you, Ms. Allred. Any questions, comments? All right, for me, just to reiterate, there's even more concerns brought up in this case, in this location, and a lot of very good points, and some of which have not been considered by council. Back to the green space concern, loss of habitat, everything attached to that, and the potential for other development, again, that's not completely official on paper yet, but it's about discussions, I believe. And, different things related to the green space attached to the loss of that use, family enjoyment, property values, concerns, the flooding mitigation, and even the environmental side. Like, I'm not even sure that was never even brought up. As far as that's, and I guess that's maybe a little premature, Mr. Tebow, what you're saying. But is that something that would naturally be done regardless, as far as what was brought up earlier in that regard?
So through the development, that is a part of the process that would have to be recognized and performed.
All right, and I think it's only fair. Also, it was also brought up as a high point item, the explain of the previous sale, that I don't think is any secret that was done inaccurately. If there can be some administrative comment in that regard, as far as what occurred and where we're at today to this stage.
You bet. So administration is taking ownership of the error that was made and provided council information, not good information. The sale of that property should have gone through the public process first. It is a mistake that was made by administration. We're trying to correct that mistake by going through the process that we are now. There was a question about the actual sale, and the sale is actually not a valid sale because of the designation that didn't get removed. So although there was a sale that took place, it's actually unable to be upheld legally because we didn't go through this process first. So there is no sale of this property at this point in time. However, there was, as was mentioned on September 9th, the sale that went through. There's multiple reasons. I won't get into all the variables that brought us to the point at where we thought we could provide council with a sales agreement. But I can assure council that, and the public, that a few procedures have been put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen a second time. Some of it was human error, some of it was software related errors, but at any rate, this is where we are, and administration, as I mentioned, is taking ownership of that, and it is what it is. Probably not the first mistake that we'll make, and likely not going to be the last mistake that we'll make, and we apologize for that.
All right. Thank you. And again, that's just with my notes, I think we've got about 3 times the concerns, albeit people are in person here tonight to explain their concerns accordingly besides the letters submitted. So I've got at least three points, or three times the notes related to the last removal designation possibility. And as a result, I cannot support that removal of municipal reserve designation. Any other questions, comments? Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question about the flooding that has been noticed over there. Is that something that administration is aware of? If like the stormwater pond is over or at capacity at some points in time, or like is that something that we need to be looking at before we remove this?
Mr. Egan, I don't know if you have any history on that. This piece of property is, while it backs onto the storm pond, doesn't actually, if it doesn't do anything to that storm pond that doesn't already happen at that storm pond. Unsure of what the development is, again, to be able to speak to what sort of other water might come that direction. But I'll let Mr. Egan speak to the storm water pond.
All right, thank you, Mr. Egan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the best way I can frame the situation is that we use a balancing act. Typically, the stormwater management in the detailed technical level on a site, developers are required to maintain the flow rates off of the site before and after development, so that our systems in the town don't see a huge increase. So an example of that would be a greenfield site that has very low rate of stormwater leaving the site because it's grass, and then you pave it, and then 100% of the water leaves the site. Each location is required to manage that water and release at the same rate. So that's the detailed technical issues that would take place on this and any other location. The actual stormwater management plan for the town, we use through various means. We manage that through area structure plans. And in those area structure plans, we have concepts, design concepts that we're going to follow as the area gets developed. The stormwater pond is an example of that. So we have overland drainage in this section of town. The stormwater ponds are meant to capture the water and retain it, and then let it either evaporate or, well, they're supposed to evaporate. This particular stormwater management pond is meant to retain water in a 1 in 100 year storm. Again, that's the balancing act. So tomorrow we could get the 1 in 200 year storm, and that pond will not be adequate. It's not really possible to design something that the town can afford that will work in every instance, and so therefore the standard is the 1 in 100 year occurrence. This particular pond, we move water from the area goes to this pond. There is culverts that move water to the north across the roadway into another pond, and then that pond we can then pump to the river through our lift station. So generally what you normally see is through the course of the year, water accumulates and either moves or gets to the point where Public Works looks and says, we need to remove water from that pond in order to increase the capacity for spring runoff or something, some event that is foreseeable, and then we will take concrete action to start moving water around. That isn't 100% foolproof, and that's some of the residents, long-term residents of the town have seen that in the past. and to some degree a recent past, where we had fairly substantial rain events, and a good majority of the town on this side was flooded, in that the stormwater management system of overland ditches and ponds was at and exceeding capacity. So at the end of the day, Public Works don't have any plans to expand this particular pond. We'll be revisiting the Eureka, which is just north of this, but we're developing north in the planning realm. So we'll be re-examining the area structure plan in the operating budget of 2025. We've got some money set aside for that, and we'll be doing some stormwater management calculations in relation to this area and also the area that economic development, the land sales that have been happening recently. So we're in the process of continually upgrading our plans and examining best practices and then coming to council with capital budget requests to make improvements where we see the highest risks and the highest use of existing taxpayer dollars. So at the end of the day, it's a balancing act.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question. Someone brought up like a ditch going through somewhere. Could you maybe show me?
So,
it's on-
just at the eastern edge of that property, you'll see just a narrow,
the far right corner.
Far right corner, if you see the narrow lines, red lines that run north-south and run into the stormwater management pond, that's actually a ditch that runs along that entire area and collects water and takes it to that spot. So between the industrial area and the residential area.
All right, Councillor Firth?
My question was about the need and plans for expansion of the storm pond, and it's been answered.
All right, thank you. Councillor Effort?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for you, young man. The land to the east of the pond, is that sellable? Is that land we are looking to sell? Is that designated part of the flood thing, or is that land that we have available to sell? Is it commercial land?
It's town-owned land.
Like, or, have we been trying to sell that portion?
You mean like right to the,
Yeah, like,
by the storm pond, in the
this
same property
side,
line?
I think we've rented it at
We
one
do
time.
have a lease for a
We have a
portion of
lease
it,
for
yes.
it from across Phase Max. So that is sellable land there.
Yes.
Right, okay. And we have, yeah, perfect.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In order to get this thing on the road, it's not really on the road because there's no motion. I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to remind council that just because I make a motion does not mean I'm in favor of it, but I want to get it on the floor. I'll move that council request the removal of the reserve designation on the property at Plan 82-10712, Block 27, Lot 28 MR, and that council directs administration to put together a plan to incorporate community recreation and beautification for the parcel of land at Plan 82-10712, Block 27, Lot 29.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I reserve the right to close debate as a mover.
Sure. All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
In favor?
All right, defeated. Thank you. All right. Thank you all for your input and thank you for your attention. No, you don't, but you're certainly welcome to if you'd like to. We certainly appreciate your patience and your input tonight as well, so thank you for your attendance.
Harley, did you golf today?
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item 7.6, flagpole requests. Mr. Tebow. Well, it's getting close, yeah. Actually, we also have our delegation here. So, yeah. We can. We can. Can't technically not. I'm willing, but yeah, anyway. This won't take long, Michelle. Okay, Mr. Tebow, just if you can update us with that, please.
Sure, just let me catch up here. So this item was at council earlier, went to the Recreation Board. Man, I can hardly see over there. And we have Mr. Martin here that can speak to it. So it's back in front of council with looking after the standing item that was put out there a while ago from yourself, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Martin, welcome.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. As was mentioned at the August 19th council meeting, administration was requested to investigate installing flagpoles and flags out at Trout Pond, this being the Canadian flag, the provincial flag, and the town flag. Administration had brought that resolution to the Recreation Board for their approval. And at the September 5th, 2024 Recreation Board meeting, the resolution was passed and it was recommended that council approve the funding of 3 of these poles and flags. The MD had requested that a 4th flagpole and flag fly the MD flag, to which they would provide the funding for that, on their behalf. So the total cost would be around $13,352, which would be taken out of the operating budget. That would include the installation and the purchase of the flag poles and flags.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. I'm just wondering, is that breaking that down in quarters, if the MD's gonna be part of that? Is that basically the suggestion, or I wasn't clear on that?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but the flagpole for the MD is not in that price, so that's for all 3?
That was just the 3.
It's not, oh. I see, okay, and that was part of their offer / recommendation. Okay, I'm just, I don't know, I guess, have we ever done that before? I'm thinking whatever the cost is to do another poll, like what's the add-on for another poll? As an example, do we know that? Is that what it is? Like it's roughly 4,000 per poll plus?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm just thinking we've had using flagpoles out of the Ken McDonald's, for example. I don't think there's any charge for that, as I'm aware. But anyway, if they're offering, I guess that's. All right, thank you, Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not opposed to this at all. I just had a quick question of where they would be placed, that's all.
I don't think that's been designated as of yet. We'd have to take it back to the rec board for final approval of the location. There's a lot more development that has to happen still out there. There's still signage that hasn't been done too. So it's a work in progress for that.
Yeah, I think just to split an appropriate spot, there's probably several locations there, but when the initial individual brought that up, he was just looking for that Canadian flag only, actually, to be displayed somewhere appropriate. And it's 20 feet in the air roughly, so it's probably not a bad spot anywhere, actually. But Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I was part of this discussion, and events are taking place, and it would be nice if there was a flag, erected at that area, and I think it's just a nice addition to the park, so I'm in favor of this.
Absolutely, all right, thank you. Councilor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am also in favor of this. The only caveat is that I think if we are going to put flagpoles and flags out there, we just need to ensure that the flags are in good condition when they are flying, because sometimes in our southern Alberta wind, the flags get a little battered and sad looking. So that's my only comment.
All right, thank you. Is it fair to say they need to be replaced annually, depending on the kind of year we had? Is that about normal?
The estimate was given for $600 a year per flags, just because we're thinking around $90 a flag. There's 3 flags in this case, and so we're thinking twice a year you might have to replace them. That was an estimate, just based on wind. I mean, out there it's a little harder.
Right.
So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Councilor Renford.
Just ready to make that motion?
Very well.
I make a motion that council directs administration to add the installation of flagpoles and flags at Trout Pond in the amount of $13,352 to the 2025 operating budget.
Right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
Mr.
Brewer,
Mayor?
yes. Go ahead.
before you vote, a couple questions. So if we put the fourth flag, I imagine these flags are going to be put in a cement base. I would think.
I believe that's the
For
standard. Yes, that's correct. Yep.
$13,000, I sure as heck hope they got cement in the bottom of those.
Yeah. No, that's confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to add another 25% or, 25% to that cost. So as long as the MD is willing to put their flags on that site, they'd be responsible for the additional cost of that. And that these would be town-owned flags. This will be the Canadian flag, the Alberta flag, and the town flag flying there.
And nor the MD flag as well. Yes. Yeah, correct.
Yes, that's what they'd be designated for. There'd be no other flags flying there.
Correct. Yeah, that's the only four we're talking. Correct.
Okay, just so we're aware that these are same as our Confederation Park flag. These flagpoles are considered town flagpoles.
That's right. All right. Thank you. Once again, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Carry now. Thank you. All right. Moving on to standing item council requests. Mr. Tebow?
I believe there's actually item 7.7, Mr. Mayor.
I'm looking at my original. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. Yeah. 7.7 ad hoc committee appointment request. TD Calla, Mr. Tebow.
So administration had a request come our way to add a council member to TD Calla's ad hoc committee. And so the request for decision is in front of council, and you can take it away.
All right. Thank you. Fairly straightforward. Any questions, concerns? Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just be prepared to make a motion.
Very well.
That council appoints Councillor Firth to the Taborn District Community Adult Learning Association until the 2025 council organizational meeting.
All right. Thank you. A motion on the table. Any further discussion? Councillor Firth?
No, that is not my intention. Happy to continue to sit on this board. My question was, does this add TD Calla to our ad hoc list? It does.
It should
Okay.
do, yes.
Yes,
Excellent.
it officially will, yes.
Wonderful. That's
Okay.
happy to be sitting on this committee. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Once again, Councillor Renford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess if it doesn't, thank you for standing on it and not just putting it, so thank you very much for putting your name up for it.
All right. Thank you. Once again. We do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Carry unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to item 7.8, standing item council request. Mr. Tebow.
Okay, we'll get through the list. Councillor Sorensen, Resolution 266. We are still working on that massive question for life expectancy. Thanks for that question, by the way. Councillor Bruin, the extension of 43rd, when you get back from where you are, you'll notice there's a difference over there. And we're going to call item 268 complete.
Excellent.
Okay.
Mr. Prokop, item 269, we rediscussed the flags tonight, and so we're going to call that complete for our next meeting. The investigation of the asphalt and concrete, Mayor Prokop, 295 resolution will still in progress. We're still working on that. And the last resolution for the communications plan, we're considering that complete. It is something that council will see in the operations budget that comes forward. So back over to council if there was anything.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Something that I heard come up a few times during those public hearings today was the comment that our public hearings are at 3:30 in the afternoon and that it may be challenging for people to attend those. I heard that concern, and I think that I see some merit there. I know that citizens do have the ability to write in, and that many did do that. They can write an email or they can write a letter, and that it is read into the public record. But I think it limits the ability for people to come and speak in person. And so I was thinking that possibly we need to change the time of public hearings, and I know that would require a bylaw change.
Mr. Tebow, just to ask the question, I don't know, is that for sure necessary, or can we just adjust the agenda accordingly?
We do have to update a bylaw to make that adjustment. Everything is prescribed in a bylaw, so administration would have to look into that and make those
That is a
adjustments.
fair question that came up several times, I believe, tonight. So, all right, thank you, Councilor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure if this is even if this can occur, but virtually, if someone, even physically can't be here, if maybe they can virtually attend. So maybe that can be put on there also.
Yeah, our IT has the capability to do all that good stuff if need be, right, Jordan? All right. Councilor Renford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm for anything to make Garth eat quicker. However, if we had the special meeting and then we put it into the agenda, if we move everything back, would everything get moved back also? Like, it would be tough to put the chicken or the cart before the horse, or however that goes.
Yeah, again, administration will look into that. That was some of the thoughts I had around. It's not just easy to answer and say yes. We'd have to take a few things into consideration and come back to council.
I think it is the cart before the horse, not the chicken before the horse.
Yeah, I had the chicken and the egg, I guess.
Yeah. There we go.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. Very well.
All right.
Okay. Councilor McLean. Sure. Yeah. You bet. You go right ahead. Councilor Firth, you had another?
Sure. Could I make the motion, and then
Sure.
we can wrap this up, and then we can move on to Councilor McLean's.
You bet.
Just blanked. Okay. I move that council directs administration to investigate changing the time for public hearings to 5:30 p.m. and to investigate the ability for virtual attendance.
All right. Let's get it all covered. All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Mayor,
Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering how people feel about becoming a no-whistle town for the CP trains coming through. CPKC, sorry. I looked it up, and there are other communities that do it. The city of Calgary does it. This town of Colehurst does it as well. All of our crossings within town are protected crossings, so they have the arms that come down that are monitored on a regular basis. And if a train, or if those arms do not come down, then the train conductor and engineer are required to blow the whistle, actually, if the arms do not come down. So with those things, because especially at night, those whistles can be quite loud and disturbing to people, and I've heard multiple questions like, oh, do they have to blow their whistles when they come through town? Anyway, so I was just curious how people felt about that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tebow.
Would you like to know how I feel about that? Or?
All of the above.
Yeah. We have investigated this in the past. I don't think it ever actually came to council that I could find. I was looking through the agenda. My recollection is that there was some sort of a significant cost associated to making the pedestrian crossways non-whistle friendly, I guess is what you might call it. So I'm still looking into that. CP are not easy or quick people to get a hold of on that regard. But I think I did see information come in around Saint Albert maybe has that already in place, and there are other places that have it there. And we can certainly look into that, but I don't have an answer for you right this minute as to why we did or didn't pursue it previously.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was yourself, Mr. Tebow. I think we maybe asked you not by way of motion per se, but, and I believe you did check into that. I thought it was an exorbitant price tag, like a $2 million fee or something along those, huge number, whatever it was, but that's what deterred us from going further with that. If I recall
That is my
correctly.
recollection. I don't know if it was $2 million price tag or not, but what I do recall is the price tag was enough for us to say we didn't think that was worth a no whistle blow at that point in time, but we can certainly revisit it another time if council desires.
So would you actually need a motion in that regard? Councilor McLean, you prepared to do that?
Yep. Yeah, I move that council directs administration to look into the feasibility and costs of becoming a no-whistle town for the CPKC rail.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Any other stand item council requests? Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just, sorry, Garth. But, during, today's discussion, safety was, brought up in regards to the ditch and the flood, zone or the floodplain. So I was just wondering if council is interested in getting more information to provide us whether we need to increase our safety in that area or if it's within the regular parameters of dealing with flood zones and drainage ditches.
All right. Do you want to do an actual motion in that regard?
Okay. No discussion? Okay.
Sure.
I would like to make a motion that administration brings back to council information in regards to the drainage ditch. Do you know the area that I'm
57th Street and
discussing?
60th Avenue?
56, yeah. And the floodplain and in regards to health and safety of the public.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Bruin?
Yes, hasn't this not already been studied through our master plan there with the flood? Like, this has been looked into before, I believe. We should have a plan about this already.
There may be something on that. I'm not recalling that exactly. I know there was some in the industrial. I'm not sure about right there, Councilor Bruin. But Mr. Tebow?
I do recall that we did quite extensive research on this, on draining the water.
I think you might be correct, Councillor Bruin, but at this time, administration doesn't have that answer. But we will be looking there first because I think you're right, and this would be an easy standing item for administration to be able to come back with if that's actually the case.
All right, thank you. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, that got it covered for any other stand item council requests? Okay. And we do have our delegation here as well. Tabor Safe Haven, item 8.1, related to society funding request. Mr. Tebow?
If we could get our delegation to come forward, please, and speak with council. We did get a request, an official request from Safe Haven, and that was forwarded on to council in the package.
Good evening, Michelle. Welcome. You're welcome to stand or sit, either one. Both are usable. When you're speaking, just need to press that button to activate the mic. There you go.
Right here? Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for having
Good
me.
evening.
This is my first council meeting, so it's really intimidating to sit here like this. So yeah, I had put a proposal after speaking to a few different people on how we go about actually requesting support from council, and they walked me through, and so hopefully it was okay. We sent a proposal in. I've been the executive director at Tabor Safe Haven for just over a year now. And we've come a long way in that year. I've seen some really amazing progress. But one of the things that I think can really help us make a bigger difference specifically to the town of Tabor is by putting in a position that can start to help our clients, women and children fleeing abuse, to rebuild their lives from day one of entering the shelter. As it stands right now, we have crisis intervention workers that work shifts, and they are there as emotional support for the women and children when they come in. But we don't have support to start helping replace identification or help put the women in touch with legal counsel or help with employment opportunities or housing while they're in the shelter. And if we can start that from day one, it gives us a 30-day jump to give them some stability so that when they enter into the community, they're active members of society, and there's a, you know, they're prepared to go back into society rather than, you know, continuing to access emergency services and health services and so on. So that is why I'm here tonight, to see if we can get some support for that.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Michelle, for your presentation. I noticed, oh, by the way, I think the Safe Haven does a great job. And I don't know much about it except that you save a lot of people from a lot of misery and a lot of abuse. But anyway, your total program cost says it's $65,000. If we were to grant you $25,000, there's a balance of $40,000, and you said you're gonna get for that fundraising, grants, and in-kind donations. What if you don't, Michelle?
So we will continue the program regardless. We have applied to Community Futures of Lethbridge for $30,000. I haven't had the answer there yet. But the position is important enough that we are going to make it work, and we will make it work by spreading other areas a little thinner so that we can have this position. This position is important enough that I'll spread other areas a little thinner if I have to.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation, and hopefully you're a little bit more relaxed. We're not that terrible. But what about collaborating with other agencies that are already in the community? I know there's low-income housing, there's Tabor Adult Learning, perhaps, with resources of helping with employment. So how do you plan on moving forward and working with them?
So we already do work very closely with them. We have an outreach center that currently works with them. And we would continue that, would actually just extend into the shelter. It's vital that we work with them. But when a woman comes into our shelter, it's a rough day, right? And so to come in and be so incredibly overwhelmed and not even know where to start, by collaborating with all these other organizations, we can actually put them in touch and get them there and walk them through that process. So it really is a partnership with all of those other organizations.
I have another
Sure,
question,
you
if
bet.
that's all right. So we already have a shortage of low-income housing. How are we going to rectify that problem? And also, how many actual women stay in the community when they go through your program?
So currently the women that we have coming through the shelter are about 70% from the Tabor area. So they obviously want to stay in the Tabor area. Sorry, what was the other part of your question?
Low-income housing, so
Well, yeah,
that's a small ask, right?
Yeah, really. Yeah, if I knew the answer to that one, I could solve a whole load of problems. I think what I'm asking for is the time to help find it, right? Yes, it's extremely limited. It really is. But by getting that 30-day jump, we can at least try to start to find it. What's happening now is after 30 days, the women are going back to their abusers very often because we can't help. So they're either having to jump to another shelter in a different area, or they're going back into an unsafe situation, whether it's back to the abuser or into, couch surfing, staying with friends, into other things like that. So I can't solve it. I would love to. But what I can do is have a little bit more time to really try our best to find some help.
Right, thank you. Councillor Renfro?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The community advocate salary, would that be a new employee, or would that be somebody already there that would just?
It's somebody already there. We're gonna shift some positions around.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Michelle, again for your presentation. And just to clarify, I think the numbers are still, as you know, I've had a lot of background with the shelter as well over the years, and quite a passion for me. It's such an essential service here. It has been around since 1996 as an organization, and 2001 was the opening, correct? So it's been around 20 years plus, and a lot of help done as a result. And I believe we're still at the 85% capacity on average. So you're 85% full, 24 beds, right?
21 beds.
21 beds, sorry. So 85% full all year long is kind of your average, right? So that's quite an essential service. I'm just wondering if we're able to support this, if we could do something collaborative with the MD as well. You know, it's in town limits, of course, the shelter, but there's so many
Absolutely.
MD and area residents as well. So I know the MD is supportive of Safe Haven as well. So I don't think they would be upset if myself and our council suggested something along those lines, but I think that would be more than appropriate as well. Councilor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. I just had a quick question of where does most of your funding come from?
So we get, most of it comes from the provincial government. They fund us to the tune of about 2/3 of what it costs to run Safe Haven. We are short significantly every year, which comes then from other grants and fundraising.
Right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Beckering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Very well.
Move that council direct administration to add $25,000 to the 2025, 2026, and 2027 operating budget for the Tabor Safe Haven Women's Shelter Society.
All right. Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you as well. All right, just moving on to media inquiries. Take it there are none.
There are none.
All right, thank you. I just ask for a motion to move into our meal break and then move back into closed session. Councilor Beckering, motion on the table. All in favor? Councilor Bruin?
In favor?
Carried unanimously. Thank you.